Today, our lesson is going to focus on adding integers with Sonic the Hedgehog. So let's first review what integers are, all your whole numbers that are positive, all your whole numbers that are negative, as well as zero. So we're not dealing with fractions, we're not dealing with decimals right now, we're just dealing with whole numbers and zero. So our whole positive numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Those dots indicating that goes on forever and ever. Same with our negative numbers as well as zero. Now, in real life situations, there are keywords to help you know if these words or integers are positive or negative. For example, with positive keywords, if you read a word problem that talks about something being above sea level or the temperature is above zero, if you earned something, gained something, deposited money, those are all indicators that we're talking about positive integers. Negative keywords include below, spent, lost, withdrew. All of those things are going to tell you that the integer they're talking about is negative. Now let's talk about actually adding these integers. There are several rules that'll help you along. First rule states that when integers are either both positive or both negative, you simply add them and keep the sign. So let's look at an example. Let's say Sonic found 3 rings and then he found 2 more. How many rings does Sonic now have? You may read this and think I could have done this without having absolutely no knowledge of integers. And I know this is a simple question, but I'm going to use these simple examples so that you understand more difficult ones. So here's our 3 rings, and then he found 2 more. Because he found these is something he has, we're going to represent these with positive integers. So that's a positive 3 and a positive 2. Looking at the rule, when the integers are both positive, we're just going to add them and keep the same sign. So we have a plus 3 and a plus 2, and we're going to add them together. 3 plus 2 is 5. And since they're both positive, we're going to keep the same sign. So 3 plus 2 is simply 5. Anytime we're talking about a positive number, it's okay, and I'm going to highlight it for you. You don't have to put this positive sign here, but you do when we're talking about negative numbers. So let's look at a negative example. So the same rule is going to apply, that when we're adding integers that are both positive or both negative, we're going to add them and keep the same sign. So I'm not sure if you've played the Sonic video game before, but if you have, you know that every time Sonic gets hit, he loses coins. So here's a picture. He ran into some spikes. He lost a whole bunch of coins. We're not going to lose that many to keep this question a little more simple for you. But let's say Sonic lost 4 coins when he ran into those spikes, and then he lost 3 more when he got hit by a robot. Because he lost those coins, remember your keywords. Lost is going to be an indicator we're talking about a negative number. So how many coins did he lose in all? So he lost 4 coins the first time. And then he lost 3 more the second time. So that's a negative 4 plus a negative 3. That's going to look like this in an expression. Negative 4 plus negative 3. Now I'm going to highlight the rule again for you. If they're both negative, you simply add and keep the same sign. So both positive or both negative, we're just going to add them and keep the same sign. So 4 plus 3 is 7. But we're going to keep the same sign, so the answer is going to be negative 7. So remember, anytime both numbers are positive or both numbers are negative, you're simply just going to add the absolute value. So 4 plus 3 is 7, but because they're both negative, we keep that same sign. So our answer is negative 7. Now let's talk about something called zero pairs. This brings us to rule number 2. Opposite integers are always going to equal 0 when you add them together. For example, if we have a plus 5 and a negative 5, they're opposites. If we add them together, we're going to get 0. Let's look at an example question. Let's say Sonic was 23 feet above sea level, but then to hide from the evil Dr. Robotnik, he jumped off the building and dropped 23 feet. How many feet above sea level is Sonic now? So let's look at this question. I'm going to highlight some key terms. He was 23 feet above sea level. So that lets us know that this is, when we're talking about that integer, it's going to be a positive 23 because he was 23 feet above sea level. Then he dropped 23 feet. So for that, we're going to be talking about a negative 23. Okay? So we're going to add these two integers together, and it'll look something like this, plus 23, and we're adding a negative 23 because these two numbers are opposites. We have a plus 23 and a negative 23. They're going to equal 0. So he is now 0 feet above sea level, or he's right at sea level. Using models. There are several models that can help you to understand this if you're a little confused with adding integers. The first we're going to talk about is a number line. Let's say we had this expression. 4, and when you don't have a positive sign in front of a number, or you don't have any sign, you can just understand that this is a positive integer. Remember, you don't have to put a plus sign to indicate that something is positive. So that's a positive 4 plus a negative 2. So I'm going to go to my number line. If I went to 4 first, so I'm going to add 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it says plus a negative 2. So because this is a negative 2, I'm going to go 2 this way. 1, 2, and we're going to get here. That's a positive 2. So our answer to that is simply 2. Let's look at another example using the same type of model. I'm going to erase this other stuff here for you. Now we're starting with a negative 3. So I'm going to go to negative 3. Now you can either start right at the negative 3 or you can go 1, 2, 3. So I'm at negative 3. And now it's telling me I'm adding a positive 5. So I'm going to start at this negative 3 and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to see that this answer is also 2. A negative 3 plus a positive 5 is 2. That's how a number line can help you solve if you're confused without using a model. A number line is a great tool to help you understand. Those last two examples bring me to my third rule. When the integers have different signs, let's say we're not going to use a model. So we're talking about one is positive and one is negative. To find the answer, you're going to subtract and keep the sign of whichever number is bigger. And when I say the bigger number, we're talking about the absolute value of the number. So here's an example. I have a negative 6 plus 8. So I'm going to go back to the rule so you understand. The signs are different, right? We have a negative 6 and a positive 8. So we are going to subtract these numbers and keep the sign of the one that has a bigger absolute value. So Sonic's going to think about this. All right, so 8 minus 6 is 2. Now look back. The 8 is larger and it's positive. So we're going to keep the sign of the positive number, which means that the answer to this is positive 2. Let's look at another example. Same rule. Negative 9 plus 5. So let's go back to the rule. They have different signs, right? We have a negative 9 that has a minus sign in front of it, and a positive 5 that has a plus 5 in front of it. So we need to subtract to find the answer, and then we're going to keep the sign of the number that's bigger. So Sonic's going to think about this again. Okay, they have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 5 is 4. Look back at the problem. Which one was bigger? The 9 is bigger, and that has a negative sign in front of it, so my answer is also negative. So negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. So to reiterate that, when the signs are different, they're going to subtract the two numbers. So in this case, 9 minus 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. Look back to your problem and see what sign was in front of the bigger number. Well, the sign in front of the bigger number is negative, so my answer is also negative. All right, Sonic's still a little bit confused still, so we're going to show you another type of model that can help you understand how to add integers. So we have this expression here, 4 plus a negative 3. I'm going to use these blocks to represent the number 4. I have 4 of them. That's my positive 4. And then since I have a negative 3, I have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. If you think back to the rules we talked about, remember that opposite pairs equal 0. So using this kind of model, you can simply cancel out and see what you're left with. So I'm going to cancel out. This is a plus 1, minus 1. Those are going to cancel out. These are going to cancel out. These are going to be canceled out. And what am I left with? A positive 1. So the answer to 4 plus negative 3 is a positive 1. Remember, you don't need to put this plus sign here, but it doesn't hurt. If you thought about the other rule we just talked about too, those have different signs. We have a positive 4 and a negative 3. So when they have different signs, you subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1, and then you keep the sign of the larger number, which in this case is a 4. It's positive, so it's a positive 1. Let's do another one with models. Negative 7 plus a negative 4. So I'm going to represent negative 7 like this. Negative 1, negative 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now the negative 4, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. Now if you think back to the rules, remember, if the signs are the same, you're simply going to add and keep the sign. So if you look, we have 1. I'm going to circle them for you. This is 7. Then we have 8, 9, 10, 11. So a negative 7 plus a negative 4 simply gives me negative 11. And that's your answer to negative 7 plus a negative 4 is negative 11. So remember, when the signs are the same, whether they're positive or negative, you simply add the numbers and keep the sign. One more example for you. Negative 6 plus a positive 1. I'm going to give you my model. That's negative 1, negative 2, 3, negative 4, negative 5. That's negative 6, and we have a positive 1. Using that initial rule we talked about with this model, opposite pairs equals 0. So I'm going to cancel out anything that I can. These two cancel out. And what am I left with? Well, we have a negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, and negative 5, because that's what's left here. So the answer to a negative 6 plus a positive 1 is simply plus 5. Remember, they have different signs, so we had to subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. So let's just review our rules. The first rule, if the integers are either both positive or both negative, you're going to add and keep the same sign. The rule number 2 states opposite integers cancel out, so think about 0 pairs. And the last rule, if the integers have different signs, you're simply going to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. I hope Sonic has helped you understand this adding integers lesson. Have a great day.